I like it when a romantic partner continues to exist as a kind of curse. For everyone who watched the Reze arc, I'd be glad if the presence of Reze remained in your mind as a lingering curse.
Chainsaw Man's new movie, the second entry for the anime, didn't just arrive, it exploded onto the scene. It was bombastic, it was tragic, it was a cinematic experience like none other. And at the heart of all of it stood Reze. It's been years since I first read this arc in the manga, but watching it unfold on the big screen hit me like a truck. Fujimoto's words could not be more accurate. This movie has haunted my thoughts ever since the credits first rolled. Something about Reze's story just works, and I think this arc is one of the best written, visually stunning, and exciting tragic love stories in not just shonen, but all of anime. But that doesn't mean it can't have some fun too. The opening with Iris out is one of the first things that grabs you. I don't know what devil Fujimoto contracted with to consistently get these absurdly high quality, high effort anime openings and endings, but he's currently 2 for 2 for openings and 13 for 13 on endings. At first, it just seems like another banger song by Kenshi Yonezu over a montage of Denji and Aki dragging power to work, but it evolves into a full opening. We have Pochita playing DDR, movie references just like Kickback, Aki joining Power and Denji this time with the Madison dance. I haven't watched that many anime films, but I'm pretty sure a 2-minute 30 full anime opening sequence is not normal, but it feels like it fits perfectly, because it not only serves as a reintroduction for the characters, but it also is the perfect way to get you hyped up for what's to come. The first arc of the movie, Denji's date with Makima, is one of the most iconic chapters from the manga, and Mappa did a beautiful job adapting it. You might have picked it up earlier, but in this scene you really notice the shift in style from Season 1. Season 1 had a bit of a controversy because of its style being overly cinematic and too grounded and realistic, something that didn't match what a lot of people envisioned Chainsaw Man to be. Personally, I thought it was great, and I didn't really understand the criticism, and it was very frustrating that these comments weren't just criticism, but actually affected the staff of Season 1, especially the director, in quite a big way. But I do have to say, after watching this movie, the new approach is just as good, if not better. It's not a huge departure, it really is mainly just more vibrant, with the colors popping more, which does make everything feel brighter and more alive, which fits the energy of the story perfectly. The animation also feels more playful, not necessarily in the art style, but in how scenes are handled. You can tell that the animators are having a lot more fun, especially with moments like this one, where Denji freaks out after seeing Makima, and definitely the way the action scenes are choreographed, but we'll get more into that later. As for the actual date scene, as someone who's read the manga, I had concerns about the pacing for this part. When reading it, it did feel like this part would feel very quick when animated because of how it has very minimal dialogue and movement, but the way they edited it and structured it worked perfectly. It didn't feel too rushed at all or too long, and the emotional core and message of the scene definitely came through. With that said though, I do have one small criticism. A common issue with anime films that are adapted from manga is that they can feel like a string of episodes put together. As far as that goes though, this movie is easily one of the best I've seen at handling this issue. It actually feels like a full movie. But this particular section did feel a little bit disconnected. It's not the fault of Fujimoto or Mappa, as manga is naturally segmented into chapters, so it makes sense for Fujimoto to write this part here, and this scene is far too important to skip for Mappa when adapting. But when I read the manga, this chapter, this date with Makima, really left an impression. It posed an interesting idea, but more so it carried a weight that felt unforgettable, something you knew you should probably remember when moving forward. And I can't really go into more details without spoiling the later part of the story, But this scene, or rather the message of this scene, is fairly important. But in the movie, it almost felt forgettable. Now that definitely could be because the rest of the movie is so memorable, but I just felt like this scene lacked the feeling that Fujimoto nailed when he first wrote it. But at the end of the day, this is a very minor nitpick for me, and it didn't take away from the overall experience at all. As soon as Reze steps into that phone booth, it really feels like the movie truly begins. The moment she appears, she completely takes over the scene. Not in the same way as a character like Makima, where she is this commanding figure and you feel her calm, controlling presence, but more her voice, the way she moves, her energy, it just makes you pay attention. And while I want to give huge props to Fujimoto because obviously this character is his creation and almost all of why Reze is so likable is because of him, I actually want to take some time to talk about what Mappa did and how they truly went above and beyond when adapting her. When you watch an actor fully embody and master a character, a lot of it is about the big speeches or the dramatic gestures. But the true difference between just a good performance and a great one is the subtle things. The tiny hand movements, the ways their eyes and mouth move, the things you don't really notice too much but come to you subconsciously. And it might sound wild, but I feel like the animators have actually managed to capture this level of nuance with Reze. The way her hair moves, the way her eyes and mouth emote, the delicate gestures of her hands, and the way they take their time to animate her entire little commute to the cafe. It's also intentional in the animation and it just gives her character so much life. And of course, Reina Ueda's amazing voice performance only takes all of this to the next level. When I read this arc in the manga, I really did like Reze a lot. She was fun, interesting, and had a compelling story. But seeing it all come into motion, seeing Reina Ueda basically embody this character with every line, it all just hit so much harder. Honestly, I think the first half of this movie wouldn't land nearly as well without this level of care from the animators. While the scenes in the cafe basically show this to its fullest extent, I actually want to talk about two other tiny scenes that I think really highlighted this for me. Firstly, in the school when Reze leaves Denji in the classroom to go to the bathroom, she waves, and then as she steps out, they decide to add this extra touch where they animate this cute little hand gesture just before she passes through the doorframe. They could have definitely just had her do that simple wave, or even just have her step out of frame in an over-the-top way and let the voice acting carry the moment. But instead they added that playful extra touch to her character right before she disappears out of scene. The second is a little bit after this, after Reze comes back to the classroom from the roof. She pauses, takes a moment, and moves her wet hair covering her face. It's such a small, seemingly insignificant thing that when you think about it, they didn't really need to animate it at all. It doesn't add anything to the plot or even tell us much about her character, but it does add life. Just take a look at this clip from New York Comic Con, where the film's CGI director explains that all this with Reze was very much intentional.
You know, the Denji thinks that Reze is so cute, so we wanted to make sure that there will be a little things that makes the audience really feel the same way as a Denji would.
And this approach they took really worked because all these small details, they add up and make Reze's character work so well in this first part of the movie. Now I know I'm focusing on Reze a lot here, but this approach kind of applies to everyone. Denji has these subtle beats in nearly every scene. Makima especially at the start and the end when we see her again, and Angel and Aki as well when they're together. And it's also not just the animation as well. Mappa also actively tried to add to these character scenes. Take the part when Denji and Reze walk through the school. In the manga, she simply asks to hold his hand and they continue walking. But in the movie, they add a small moment where they glance at each other. It's subtle, only a few seconds, but it's memorable because it has this awkward, familiar feeling. And yeah, the explosions, the bombastic fight scenes later in the film are absolutely incredible. But what makes those moments land, what gets you emotionally invested when the action does hit, is the groundwork laid by these tiny, intimate moments. Chainsaw Man definitely has a reputation for being a shonen with a bit of a degenerate side. And let's be honest, there are definitely scenes you wouldn't want playing on the TV when someone walks into your room. But what I love and really respect about Chainsaw Man and Fujimoto is that these moments are never there just for cheap fan service. They almost always serve a purpose, whether it's to progress the plot or develop a character, most often that being Denji. When Reze invites Denji to the pool, Mappa and Fujimoto almost tricks you into thinking it's going to be one of those cheeky fan servicey scenes. The music may give it away, but they still throw in a few jokes as Reze takes off her clothes and Denji makes some unhinged comments. They even get a bit silly with the animation. But then this moment right here is when I realized this movie truly was something special. The entire pool sequence is one of the most cinematic, emotionally resonant scenes I have ever experienced in a theater. I've seen the film twice now, and both times the audience went from a few laughs here and there from Denji's reactions to the situation, but as soon as he leaps and hits the water, it's complete silence. Kensuke Ushio absolutely nailed the score here. If you haven't revisited the soundtrack, especially this piece, I highly recommend it. It doesn't matter how long it's been since you've seen the movie, as soon as that piano hits, it pulls you right back in. And while I definitely don't think you need to watch this movie more than once to truly understand it, this scene hits a lot harder on the second watch. The first time, it's still ethereal, emotional, and clearly very important. But after you've seen the ending, after you understand who Reze really is, this scene becomes something else entirely. Now, I want to take a step back and ask you something. How many pages do you think this pool sequence is in the manga? If you asked me right after finishing the movie, I think I would have said 10 to 15 pages. And I feel like most people would say something similar. Well, the actual answer is it's only 6 pages, and when Denji actually enters the water, only 2. Normally when Fujimoto draws scenes like these emotional scenes with not a lot of dialogue, but just characters living in the moment, he normally dedicates full spreads and really emphasizes it. These are some of the most memorable parts from Fujimoto's manga. Now, not to say that Fujimoto missed when he drew the pool scene, but I love how Mappa looked at this in the manga, realized how important it was, and decided to just go all in. And honestly, I can't imagine watching this movie without this scene being adapted exactly in the way it was. It's visually stunning, the emotions were high, the music perfect, the voice acting, water effects all incredible, and of course the addition of the spider and the butterfly. You might not realize it because of how well it fits, but the spider and the butterfly in this scene are completely anime original. This symbolism just makes so much sense for the scene we're watching, it almost feels like it wouldn't be complete without it. And it even takes on an entirely new meaning by the end of the movie. I've been watching anime for quite a while now, and it does feel like a lot of the time anime studios kinda just follow the source material to a T, specifically when adapting manga. There's definitely nothing wrong with that at all. When the manga receives an adaptation, it's obviously for a reason, and especially when it's something like Chainsaw Man, it doesn't really feel necessary to do more. But nothing makes me respect a team more when they look at a piece of work and decide to go out of their way to try and enhance it. Action scenes are the most common improvements from manga because Well, manga can rarely capture the full motion that animation can. But when they try to enhance the story, the plot, the characters, by adding extra scenes, lines, or symbols, it really shows the passion and effort they put into making a show or movie. And sometimes it doesn't work, that's fair. There's a reason why the mangaka wrote their story a certain way. But when it does work, like in this movie and in this scene especially, it just elevates it to the next level. When the curtain falls and Reze's true character is revealed, the movie shifts quite a bit. I don't really treat the reveal of Reze being the bomb hybrid as a twist, because if you've seen a trailer, any promotional material, or just participated in general chainsawman discussion, you probably already knew. But the scenes showing Reze's true character doesn't really rely on it being a twist, it works regardless. The first major hint that things aren't what they seem is the rooftop scene with the devil hunter serial killer. I'm not sure how I imagined this moment when I read it, but what they did in the movie was definitely not what I expected. Reina Ueda's voice as Reze is running and cornered on the roof just feels so real and full of fear, and if you didn't know she was the bomb devil, you probably would think that this character is genuinely in danger. And then the way they present the actual fight is stunning. Reze's deafening scream basically mutes the rest of the movie. The colors fade to this dreary grey tone, and the quick cuts just show Reze dismantling him with the only sound being the impact of her attacks. And what's really cool is Fujimoto actually intended for this scene to kind of be shown in this way, as can be seen by the way he paneled the manga. It's unfortunately not as impactful in the manga because the sound design and voice acting plays such a powerful role in the movie, but I love that even on the page there was already a clear vision of how this should unfold. And leading that immaculate takedown by Reze, we go straight into her soft voice singing in Russian while she emotionlessly chokes this guy out. It's eerie, creepy, yet beautiful. And then there's the kiss. This is basically the true turning point for when this movie shifts from basically what's been a romance with a hint of mystery to just full-blown action spectacle. The lead up with Reze and Denji running through the festival kinda gets skipped over in a lot of discussion because it is surrounded by much more memorable, impactful scenes, but this part was also beautifully done. The choice to blur the motion of the festival crowd while keeping Denji and Reze crystal clear is just perfect imagery. And of course, the music once again, Kensuke Ushio absolutely nailed it. It feels nostalgic, yet fresh and fun, and I love how it echoes First Glance, which is the track that plays when Reze first enters that phone booth. And then the scene that follows. The dialogue here is devastating, especially once you fully know about Reze's character. And huge credit goes to Reina Ueda, who absolutely delivers in this moment. In this scene, Mappa actually pulls back on the facial animation, and they choose a lot of wider shots that frame both Denji and Reze together. And it works fine because the voice acting carries everything. You don't even have to know the words she's saying because Reina Ueda's use of tone perfectly conveys everything Reze is feeling in this moment. One line in this scene I actually find super interesting is when Reze tells Denji that she'll protect him. At this point, it doesn't make much sense from Denji's perspective, or even for Reze herself to say out loud. To Denji right now, Reze is just a normal girl, working at a cafe with a bit of a carefree vibe, while Denji himself is a professional, highly skilled devil hunter. And this is brought up multiple times by Reze. So why would she be the one offering protection when she hasn't revealed anything to Denji quite yet? You could definitely interpret this line as Reze being more experienced with life and society, offering emotional protection. But I think this is Fujimoto's way of hinting that this is Reze finally being herself completely. This isn't her manipulating anymore, this is the real Reze, the bomb devil, the child soldier from Russia, and the broken character who's looking for a way out. In the previous scenes, the line is a bit more blurred for whether Reze is being honest or if she's still playing a part. But right here, I think it's pretty clear that she's being 100% real. She's realizing maybe she can escape the life forced upon her, not alone, but with someone who's in a similar situation. But when Denji rejects her with pretty valid and grounded reasons, she understands it was just a fleeting dream, and she goes back to her original plan. When the kiss actually happens, when she bites off his tongue, it's almost like we temporarily flip to a whole different genre. The cute, playful Reze has now transformed into basically a horror villain. In the manga, this scene was horrific, but it never quite captured how terrifying Reze is in this moment. The music in this scene is masterful. It's eerie, it's distorted and horrifying. If you really listen, and I encourage you to look it up and listen carefully, you can actually hear a distorted version of Slow Summer Eve, which is the track that just played in the festival scene moments ago. The anime does mostly mirror what happens in the manga for this scene, but one thing they definitely changed is having Reze's mouth completely covered in blood. It's kind of a small thing, but it just makes it so much creepier and makes her a lot more terrifying. And of course, the transformation. A starter chord from Denji's chest is iconic, and I couldn't see it being anything else. But Reze's pin on her neck is just as good. It's such a clever design choice having her disguise it as a choker, and it's basically in plain sight for most of the movie. We just don't know what it is. And of course, that now iconic little boom from Reze is just so fitting for a character. She's playful, dangerous, and now we know she's completely unhinged. I don't think Fujimoto has missed on any of his major devil designs. Sure, some of them like the Bat Devil or Leech just kind of serve their purpose and aren't particularly memorable, but the main ones, they're absolutely incredible. It's not just about looking cool, they have this uncanny, otherworldly vibe. And when it comes to the hybrids, there's this brilliant balance where they still retain the visual personality of their human side while still feeling like a devil. I also love that even after Reze transforms, she still speaks with what's essentially her original voice. It's a good choice because it still makes the conflict feel more personal. It still reminds you that beneath all of this, it's still the same character that we were watching just moments ago. And from this point to the end of the movie is basically just non-stop pure action. It's some of the best animation I've ever seen in my life, and I can't really capture in words, you just have to see it to understand. One thing I can point out though that I really appreciate is that the action never overstays its welcome. There are definitely breaks, like when Reze infiltrates the training facility and the scene of Aki saving Angel. At the start of the video, I mentioned how the style shifted from season 1, how it got more fun and creative. Earlier in the movie, that creativity was mostly reserved for joke scenes, daydreams, and lighter moments. But now that they're applying that same energy to the action, it's absolutely mind-blowing. In season 1, the fights were great, but they felt a lot more grounded. They weren't bombastic and they weren't meant to be. The combat felt more like chaotic hand-to-hand devil brawls. It was cleanly animated, impactful, and hype, but in this movie, we're not talking about katanas versus chainsaws anymore. This is bombs, massive explosions, and buildings being obliterated. When Reze and Denji face off in the building in a short 1 to 2 minute fight, the animation style shifts maybe 3 or 4 times. There's slow motion on key hits, dynamic movement, and they even got a choir coming in at the climax. It's scenes like this that really make you glad they took their time. Like, yeah, 3 years is a long time to wait after season 1, but when they're showing us stuff like this, it almost feels worth it. The way they handled Reze's fighting was also impeccable. When I read the manga, I didn't realize how much she incorporates explosions into her movement and even just some of her smaller attacks. Mappa made it very clear what she was doing. When she dashes to catch up to Beam and Denji, she uses an explosion at her feet. When she's chasing them overhead, she's using her bombs to stay afloat and basically fly. And even some of her very basic punches, there's an explosion behind her arm because she's using it to give the attack more power. It's something Fujimoto drew in the panels, and he 100% envisioned her powers to work like this, but on the big screen, it really shows how creative of a character the Bomb Devil truly is. And then, of course, there's the Typhoon Devil fight. I don't know what Fujimoto was smoking when he came up with this part, but it's fun, crazy, chaotic, and it works perfectly. And to give some insane credit to Mappa, most if not all the action scenes after Denji starts riding Beam is anime original. Manga is a much tougher medium for explosive, gory action, so I understand why Fujimoto didn't overstay his welcome with these action scenes, and he is still the mastermind behind the core of the fight, the iconic attacks, the iconic shots, and of course the conclusion, but everything you saw in between in the movie, that was Mappa. Just to give you an idea of what the original was actually like, when Denji and Beam charge Reze and chop off her leg, Typhoon then heals Reze, and then we cut to the Archangel scene for the next couple pages. After that, we get one page of Denji attacking Typhoon, then this iconic shot, and Typhoon is defeated. Mappa gave us a whole lot more than that, most notably the building fight I just mentioned before, which was, for me at least, the highlight of the action in this movie, and then of course the much more extended killing of the Typhoon Devil, and the final Reze beatdown. This score that starts playing in this scene is right up there with In the Pool as one of my favorite tracks in the film. It's a fantastical, epic score that just suddenly starts blasting. And if you heard this track out of context, Chainsaw Man would probably be one of the last things you'd associate it with, but somehow it fits perfectly. And of course, this scene with the multicolored nuke, the torpedo, in the manga is just 2 pages. I really respect Mappa for this, but I don't want to sound like I'm digging at Fujimoto. Obviously, 2 different mediums, 2 different approaches. What Fujimoto did in the manga was perfect. It's short, it's sweet, and it looks clean, and it's still insanely hype. The movie obviously can't copy this. They need extra content, in between scenes for movement and more. But what I truly respect is they got really creative. They filled the gaps with stunning animation, not just time padding, and they still hit every emotional and narrative beat that Fujimoto intended. And to finish off this section about the action part, I actually want to take a step back from the animation. Even though I just spent the last few minutes absolutely praising the hell out of the action, the visuals, the sheer hype, at the end of the day, I think what really makes this movie, this story stand out is the quieter, more emotional moments. In today's anime landscape, especially in the shonen space, there's a ton of anime with incredibly well animated fights. And some of these shows are the most successful in recent years, becoming absurdly popular, winning awards, and basically becoming mainstream. With the Reze arc, Chainsaw Man is starting to hold its own against these anime. Mappa is showing us what they can do with the exciting parts that Fujimoto wrote in the manga. But what I think this arc does exceptionally well is how it handles the quiet moments before, during, and after the action. The first half of the movie, the Archie and Angel scene, the scene on the beach, and Reze's final moments. These to me are the emotional anchors of the story. And while the action, the promise of chainsaws and explosions might be what draws people in, and sure it definitely is a big reason why the movie did so well at the box office, the emotional part of the story is what keeps you thinking about the movie long after you leave the theater. And for this, I definitely need to give props to Fujimoto. You can see this in almost all his work. He's basically mastered this writing style of seamlessly blending these absurd, crazy settings and stories with such raw, grounded character moments. I mean, just imagine telling yourself years ago that one of the most beautifully written, emotional love stories Shonen would produce would also feature a guy with a chainsaw head riding a shark, yet it doesn't feel out of place at all. The simplest way I can put it is this: Chainsaw Man has some of the best, craziest action I've ever seen in manga and anime. Yet what makes it memorable, what makes it stand out from the crowd, isn't the action at all. And that leads us perfectly into the end of Denji and Reze's fight. With how the fight had been escalating, you'd expect it to keep building. One final explosion, one last move from Denji or Reze to close it out in spectacular fashion. And while it was one move from Denji that ended it all, and it was technically an attack, it ended up being more like an embrace. The sudden shift from non-stop eye candy and high energy music to Denji and Reze falling into the ocean with an alternate version of the pool soundtrack playing, Mappa nails this emotional beat again. It's a perfect ending for this fight, for the action not to conclude with one character overpowering the other, but with a quiet moment with both of them reminiscing about a time they shared together. On the beach, Denji and Reze finally get to talk. For the first time, there's nothing held back. No chainsaws, no bombs, no roles for Reze to play. It's just Denji and Reze stripped down to who they really are. And here Reze lets it all out. She admits it was all an act. Every word, every expression, every blush was all just a product of her training. And while it hurts to hear, both us, the audience, and Denji have our doubts. Not necessarily because she was genuine the whole time, but there were moments, standout moments of their relationship that felt too real to forget. I love how Fujimoto handles this next bit of dialogue. When Denji throws out one last chance, instead of having Reze doubling down, telling Denji again that it was all fake, instead she explains why this can't work, why this would make Denji complicit to murder. And I love the callback to the pool once again. If all of it was fake, Denji mentions, "You taught me how to swim, it can't all be a lie." Fujimoto is basically making you remember every moment they share together. And it really makes you question, now that you've seen it all, which parts were truly real. Reze hugs him, also an anime original moment, before she then snaps his neck and leaves. She's conflicted. She has a job, a dangerous one at that, and she knows she can't live a normal life. But she still grew to really care about Denji. And she makes it all the way up to that platform with this conflict still in her mind and her escape in the form of a train right in front of her. But in that moment, her conflict is decided. As we see her make her way back to the cafe, back through the very path we saw her take at the start of the movie, this time not to go to work, but to a promise of love and freedom, as we watch her even start running as the cafe comes into sight, it all comes crashing down to a tragic ending. We thought Reze's facade shattered the moment she pulled the pin and became the bomb devil. But it's here, at the very end, where everything truly reveals itself. Reze never had a proper childhood either. Every time she called out Denji's hollow little life, his enjoyment of the bare minimum, the constant danger he lives in, she's projecting, because this is exactly the life she's been living as well. And then there's the spider and the butterfly. In the pool scene, we're led to believe Reze is the spider, the predator trapping Denji in a web of lies. She even says it herself on the beach. It was all an act. She never cared, and she knew it would never work after Denji mentioned Makima. And we as the audience also deep down knew it couldn't work because we saw the destruction to innocent lives and close allies that she caused. But then, why did she come back? Why didn't she kill him right away? Why did she take the time to teach him how to swim? In her final lines, she asks the same questions, and in doing so, she gives us the tragic answer. She was never the spider. As soon as she saw herself in Denji, as soon as she learned more about him, as soon as she started to fall for him, we realized she was actually the butterfly. Whether it was companionship, love, or whatever else you may interpret it as, the truth is that whatever drew Reze back to Denji at the end of the movie, it was real. She knew the risks, she said it herself, but by then, it was too late. The true twist of this movie wasn't that Reze was the bomb devil, but that she was actually the butterfly being trapped. Not in the web of lies like we thought Reze had set out herself, but one of hope in the form of a peaceful life with Denji, the life of a country mouse. As her story closes, we realize that while Reze was the antagonist, deep down she represented something far more fragile. A fleeting, youthful love that was never meant to be. And while Denji remains none the wiser of her fate, Tatsuki Fujimoto and Mappa leaves us with the tragic yet beautiful story of Reze, the one who got away.
デンジ君、本当はね、私も学校行ったことなかったの。